The vaccine, I told you, was not created. It was called a vaccine for legal reasons. I told you, it was not a vaccine. It's not a vaccine. And because they knew it was not a vaccine, they said it's an experiment. Read their legal document. It says it's an experiment. Number two, I brought these things to you then in 2020, 2021, 2022. I showed you. And I read to you their documents which they contracted nations to sign so that they could deliver vaccines to them for their people. In those documents, they clearly stated that they don't know what might result from you taking the vaccine. They don't know. They don't know the effects. They're not sure what the results would be, whether now or in the future. And still, they got people to take those vaccines? With all of that written there, they had nations sign, their government sign to take the vaccines. Let me tell you how they did it. They first made sure in many of those countries, the health minister, the minister of health, that is the Department of Health in the country, was sponsored by them. So he was going to sign it anyway, not because he knew it was right, but because he was compromised. How can you sign a document to accept a vaccine that is labeled an experiment? And number two, it declares that they cannot tell what will happen to you when you take it, whether now or in the future. There was something else I brought to your attention then. We didn't emphasize much on that at that time. You know, there was so much to discuss at the time. But something significant. I told you that the vaccine had the capacity to alter your DNA.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, here's an interesting thing. They have a legal judgment that allows them to lay claims as their property anyone whose DNA had been edited. So you become the legal possession of Pfizer, Moderna, and co. Terrible. But I want you to watch this documentary right now. From 2020, the globalists I've always said that the leftists, they know how to pick nice names. I don't like calling them globalists, actually, because they don't deserve that. But, you know, it does describe what they want to do from the negative perspective. But they wanted to take over the world, and they inflicted the world with their satanic vaccines. And I told you at that time that it was not a vaccine because it didn't do any of the things that vaccines do. They said it was a vaccine against the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, which they described as COVID-19. And I remember asking a question: who isolated the virus? Who purified it? Because I knew they were lying, I told you. How could they claim they had a cure for a virus that was never isolated? Until this day, there's no isolation of the virus. And yet, they have a vaccine that they want people to take. And many have done it to their detriment, including to their death. And some are still in fear of what doesn't exist. They're still happy to take it, because these satanic globalists continue to double down on the need for their killer vaccine. So what you have is genocide. They've killed so many people already with the vaccine. The vaccine, I told you, was not created. It was called a vaccine for legal reasons. I told you, it was not a vaccine. It's not a vaccine. And because they knew it was not a vaccine, they said it's an experiment. Read their legal document. It says it's an experiment. Number two, I brought these things to you then in 2020, 2021, 2022. I showed you. And I read to you their documents which they contracted nations to sign so that they could deliver vaccines to them for their people. In those documents, they clearly stated that they don't know what might result from you taking the vaccine. They don't know. They don't know the effects. They're not sure what the results would be, whether now or in the future. And still, they got people to take those vaccines? With all of that written there, they had nations sign, their government sign to take the vaccines. Let me tell you how they did it. They first made sure in many of those countries, the health minister, the minister of health, that is the Department of Health in the country, was sponsored by them. So he was going to sign it anyway. Not because he knew it was right, but because he was compromised. How can you sign a document to accept a vaccine that is labeled an experiment? And number two, it declares that they cannot tell what will happen to you when you take it, whether now or in the future. There was something else I brought to your attention then. We didn't emphasize much on that at that time. You know, there was so much to discuss at the time. But something significant. I told you that the vaccine had the capacity to alter your DNA.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, here's an interesting thing, and I read it to you then. They have a legal judgment that allows them to lay claims as their property anyone whose DNA had been edited. You become their property. Now, there are legal judgments forbidding anyone, any organization, or any person to claim ownership of a human being. But if the DNA is edited, altered, then the company who's responsible for such alteration can lay claims to that person as his property. They snaked that in, they were able to get it legally. So you become the legal possession of Pfizer, Moderna, and co. I don't think many people understand the significance of that. I don't think they understand it. The terrible implication of that statement. I would use another opportunity to tell you about it because I would like to read again to you the actual documents. Terrible. But I want you to watch this documentary right now.
At the conclusion of the case, and after you have heard all the evidence, we are confident that you will recommend indictments against all 6 putative figurehead defendants: Christian Drosten of Germany, Anthony Fauci, the United States, Tedros of the World Health Organization, Bill Gates, and Pfizer.
These are all the perpetrators, all these people I'm talking about, all these organizations, they're all the perpetrators of COVID-19. And they're all stained with the blood of those that they killed with these Luciferian vaccines.
The shots are now killing people and have been causing excess mortality of up to 40% since September as a result of a poisoning with the spike protein and of shutting off our immune system.
She takes the shot. 10 days later, she's dead. I'm pretty sure the only person that can call someone home is the Lord. And these people, and taking lives, and you cannot do that. You know, the benefit didn't outweigh anything. You know, you can't, you know, pick and choose, you know, who should live, who should die, when you know the side effects are severe and deadly. 1,200 people died from the trial. Nobody knew. Nobody still knows about it. And justice has to be served. My husband can't go down as a statistic on a medical journal somewhere. He deserves far more. The ill that are vaccine injured deserve far more. And the people that lost their lives.
It's fine. Just have more.
For several decades, the murderous acts of the evil-inspired globalists reveal a compulsive pathological drive to rid the world of its inhabitants.
My name is Jane Goodall. My age is 80. If I'm allowed to change a few things, if I just have this magic power, I would like to, without causing any pain or suffering, reduce the number of people on the planet. Reduce the number of people on the planet.
Reduce the number of people on the planet.
Because there's too many of us. It's a planet of finite resources, and we're using them up.
You have to get the death rate and birth rate in balance, and there's only 2 ways to do it. One is to bring the birth rate down, the other is to push the death rate up.
We haven't invented new ways of raising the death rate. Famine, pestilence, and war. I mean, those are the ones we have.
In previous years, the loud, banging sounds of weapons of war were unleashed on unsuspecting peoples and nations in the actualization of the globalists' sinister goal of depopulating the Earth. But in recent times, they have chosen to explore other weapons of genocide.
What they could not do with weapons of war because they don't want to look bad. They're trying to do some other ways. So they've moved from weapons of mass destruction to more silent weapons of the masses' destruction.
Consequently, these silent weapons of the masses' destruction have been launched on the nations of the world in various ways. But one prominent way has been through an ominous germ warfare, also referred to as a biological warfare. But first, what is a germ warfare or biological warfare, and how is it deployed? According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, germ warfare is the use of harmful microorganisms, such as bacteria, as weapons in war.
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes. Now, part of the reason for this is that we've invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. The source of the virus could be a natural epidemic like Ebola, or it could be bioterrorism, and we'd have millions and millions of deaths.
Horrible. I asked them, are viruses living things? Tell me, are they living things? If they're not living things, who created them? Where are they found? They can only multiply in their hosts, right? Because they were created to do so by the people who did them. Influenza, HIV, Ebola, polio. What? Who doesn't know they fixed this thing in the lab?
The virus, a structure that isn't living per se, but is capable of self-replication when inside a living cell. For a quick casual indicator of just how deadly viruses can be, we'll start by name-dropping a rather major one, smallpox, which before its total eradication in 1977 is believed to have killed up to 500 million people across the world in the 20th century alone. Influenza, despite the fact that it's not exactly viewed as the boogeyman that it should be, is still responsible for the deaths of nearly 500,000 people annually, while major pandemics have taken the lives of tens of millions in one fell swoop. HIV is a virus, rabies is a virus, dengue fever is a virus, Ebola virus, if you couldn't tell, also a virus.
Our government, the Department of Energy in particular, used cesium-137 to create from a protein called gene 1616. They transformed this protein from brewer's yeast to 470,000 pathogens, including Marburg, Ebola, Zika. All of those are man-made. All of those were created by our Department of Energy. All of them are for sale.
You're talking about the spike protein. You've been looking into all these patents.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think's going on?
Our government owns it. Our government made it. So we came to understand that with the introduction of cesium-137, which is the main component to atomic weapons, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the fallout was cesium-137. We saw that the WHO and our government were monitoring the specific absorption rate, the radiation of cesium-137 in the content of human beings, not just the United States, but the world over. And we came to understand that when cesium-137 binds with living tissue, whether it's us or a pig, and I say that with a reason, it turns that living tissue into a transmitter, a transducer, an amplifier, and transmitter. You might remember there was a Chinese guy they found in Los Angeles, the meter maid or whoever it was going by, the code people, code enforcement, and they go and the guy's got Staphylococcus and Ebola in his fridge, his drinks fridge. How do you get them? Because he ordered them in the mail.
What do you believe about the origin of AIDS?
What I know and what I'm presenting on Wednesday is that it's a man-made virus. There's no question in my mind these viruses are man-made biological weapons, if you will, or they were developed for cancer research models by National Cancer Institute researchers, people under National Cancer Institute contract, who also were contractors for the Department of Defense.
And then they created the cure, which the best situation for the cure, vaccine.
In a book written 69 years ago, titled The Poisoned Needle, Suppressed Facts About Vaccination by Eleanor McBean, shocking revelations are made about the destructive nature of vaccines and their ultimate goal for population reduction. Please pay close attention.
So here's the last paragraph, and some of this I'm going to shorten, leave words out just for the sake of brevity. So vaccination has caused more death and disease than war, pestilence, and plague combined. The useless practice of killing germs with poison drugs has never and can never solve the problem of disease. Infusion of poison injected into the bloodstream of the masses only serves to intensify the disease in some cases, suppress the symptoms in others, and create new and more serious diseases in still others. We have seen this misbegotten child of ignorance, vaccination, grow into a Frankenstein monster of immense proportions. Through the lethal power of the poison needle, these simple diseases of the past have devolved into the horrors of the present. Many of these strange mystery diseases that baffle the entire medical world are the sordid, in other words, dirty, filthy products of vaccine poisons. All these vaccine-induced atrocities are far worse than smallpox or any other eruptive diseases. And she goes on to say that eruptive diseases are really nature's way of trying to expel poisonous waste from the body. And finally, our worst epidemics now are epidemics of vaccination, in which more people are killed every year by vaccine-induced diseases than by diseases that the vaccines were supposed to combat.
The vaccination program, as I've said several times, is not about health. It's about population reduction. And that's what several scientists have found out, and that's why they call the vaccine program genocide. That's why they call it a bio-warfare against human populations.
It's a weapon. In fact, there are 3 papers, one by Farkas, published in Military Medicine, and 2 by Yen, published in preprint. They've actually concluded it is a bioweapon. It is a bioweapon. According to strict military criteria, it's a bioweapon. As a doctor, I have never seen something so injurious to the human body. It invades the brain. It invades the heart. It causes brain and heart damage. It invades the bone marrow. It stimulates antibodies to actually start to attack our own platelets and our other cells in our body. It causes blood clotting and damage to blood vessels like we've never seen. Data from University of Pittsburgh suggesting it causes cancer. Since when do we have a protein that actually injures the brain, injures the heart, the bone marrow, the immune system, causes blood clotting, and potentially causes cancer in a single protein? It's a weapon.
Well, in their own words, the leaders of Brevard County's GOP say that they believe the vaccines are a biological weapon. In this 4-page letter, complete with footnotes, Brevard County Republicans cite sources which led them to a stunning conclusion. Here it is in their own words. Government agencies, media, and tech companies, and other corporations have committed enormous fraud by claiming COVID-19 injections are safe and effective. Strong and credible evidence has recently been revealed that COVID-19 and COVID-19 injections are biological and technological weapons.
Even Dr. Anthony Fauci testifies to the dangers caused by vaccines in this interview.
This would not be the first time, if it happened, that a vaccine that looked good in initial safety actually made people worse. There was the history of the respiratory syncytial virus vaccine in children, which paradoxically made the children worse. One of the HIV vaccines that we tested several years ago actually made individuals more likely to get infected.
How ludicrous. He speaks like he wasn't a willful perpetrator in the mass genocide executed through these nefarious shots, when in fact he was and still is. In effect, not only did many get worse in Dr. Fauci's words, many actually died as a result of these evil vaccines.
The information's been out there. The people dying from taking the vaccines.
My son Victor Samoes, he was killed by the Pfizer vaccine. He only took 1 shot. He took it on April 20th, 2021. And on the morning of the 16th day, he passed away suddenly. He had been feeling chest pains in the morning, around 1 o'clock in the morning, and he called 911. He had a jaw pain. He also had a racing heartbeat. He called 911. The medics arrived. He went downstairs from his apartment where he was living in Seattle, and he was sitting on the bench. They started taking his blood pressure. His girlfriend arrived. He says, "This is my girlfriend," and he collapsed. He became unresponsive. The medics worked on him. They took him to the ER, and he passed away. So now we are a bereaved family. We are lost without our son. We'll never be the same. Our lives are gray. They'll never be bright again.
This is my stepbrother. Robert Weeks Jr. He received a shot for COVID on Friday, and
His first shot?
Yes, his first shot, and was found dead on Sunday.
6 or 8, 9 months before he had the J&J vax. They said, but you have to be boosted. Went to the nearby pharmacy, and all they had was the Pfizer booster. He took it on that day. He had a blood clot to the lung and died instantly.
She didn't feel well at all after the booster. And about 2 days after her booster, she collapsed. Her legs were completely paralyzed. She had no feeling in her legs. And she was even incontinent. She fell on the floor and they found her face down in her own urine and feces, almost dead. I mean, she barely had a pulse. I said to the doctor, I said, I'm begging you, please give her a chance. She had a port that went directly to her heart, and it developed an infection, and she died.
My wife has passed away, and the doctors attributed her passing away to getting the vaccine. She started having heart problems. Her blood pressure kept dropping every time she would stand up. They put a pacemaker in her thinking it was her heart, but it wasn't. And everything was fine before we got the shots.
Moderna.
Moderna.
And this is about your sister?
It is about my sister.
Okay, tell us what happens. Take us back to when this occurred.
And unfortunately, the story's really short. That's it. She takes the shot. 10 days later, she's dead. Her daughter got her heart starting. This is the hard part. And the EMTs came. They put her in the ambulance. I believe they had to start her heart again. They took her to the hospital, and they diagnosed a brain aneurysm. The reason I'm here, she can't speak for herself, and it has to stop. It has to stop. These things have to be off the market because they are dangerous. And you know what? Michael's one of the lucky ones because she's not suffering like a lot of other people are from these vaccinations.
One Moderna.
One Moderna.
Sadly, one strange anomaly found among the vaccinated who died suddenly were blood clots. In spite of the false notion that vaccines were safe and effective, as touted in the media.
The vaccines, let me say it again, are safe. They are safe. And they are free. And they are effective. And it is that simple.
On the contrary, they were neither safe nor effective. Today, several bear witness of the unfortunate ill of blood clots found in the bodies of the vaccinated.
Back around November of last year, of 2021, people were asking me, well, how many people are having these strange clots? And I didn't have a very good answer for it. So starting in November, I started making notations of whether or not the person was clotted or not, or vaccinated. Now, instead of calling them blood clots, I try to refer to them as white fibrous clots or white fibrous structures. How come all of a sudden these things are happening in so many people? When I first started seeing these strange clots, in the beginning I thought, this is kind of weird, it's kind of crazy, I don't understand. As I started gathering more and more photographs, I'm able to share it amongst other people that I work with. I talk to other embalmers that have 30, 40, even 50 years of experience.
I'm a licensed funeral director, National Board funeral director, and certified embalmer. I've been in the death care industry since 1982. I've been embalming, been in the embalming process with well over 1,000 bodies. And I had actually noticed some of the differentiations in the clots as well in some of the bodies I had been embalming, and that had started recently.
First time I saw it firsthand, pulled out of a deceased, my end, was about 3 months ago. Been struggling to embalm people for around about 18 months, my embalmer was complaining that he was having trouble getting fluid through people. And the way they do that is they cut into the carotid artery and they pump it around the body via a pump. He was struggling to get it through, and we kind of thought, well, maybe the pump wanted servicing, and had a look at it, it doesn't. Pulled this out, and he kind of grabbed the end with the tweezers, and this comes out in one piece, one elastic piece. It looks like calamari.
Longest one that I have on video is probably almost 3 foot long, which is incredible to come out of the, the jugular up here. It's incredible.
That is not normal.
I talked to other embalmers that have 30, 40, even 50 years of experience. Said, hey, have you guys ever seen this stuff before? And the answer was always,
I haven't seen clots like these.
This is one more proof that these vaccines were intended to damage and kill. But it gets even more puzzling. Another strange phenomenon was discovered. Recall when the internet was rife with testimonies of the vaccinated who were connecting to Bluetooth devices? Well, it didn't end there. Even the dead, after they were long buried for being vaccinated, were still giving off Bluetooth signals as demonstrated in a cemetery.
So, why in the open field, and what was the justification? With an electronic device, such as this simple cell phone with a Bluetooth application. When they were near vaccinated people, some Bluetooth codes were collected, which are called MAC, which means Media Access Control. Greetings from a cemetery somewhere in the Republic Mexican. You can see that there is no other person here besides us. We are not vaccinated, and here we are picking up the Bluetooth codes from people who had died. For now, in this cemetery, 4 Bluetooth codes we've detected. We obviously don't know where the people who died in 2021 and 2022 are, and we've been guided by the Bluetooth readings. I repeat, we are in a cemetery, and around here there's no one alive in the vicinity. Right here, again, another Bluetooth device of a person who passed away on November 22nd, 2021. Let's say 11 devices are already registered here, and there are the MAC codes.
After you have heard all the evidence, we have no doubt that you will recommend indictments against all our putative defendants for crimes against humanity.
He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are brought to a quick end. Job 5, verse 13.